My name is Asia Sampson, and today on Baptism Overland, could this one knife be the only knife I will ever need? So before we start talking about this knife that I'm actually here to review, let me show you what it is that I am using now. This is the SE3, and like many of you who are SE fans, once you're an SE fan, you will always be an SE fan. Like, I just love SE knives. The simplicity of it, the form factor, like this has been my go-to for everything. Every time I'm overlanding and camping, this is always at my side. I have used this to cut meat all the way down to cutting firewood. Like, this has been my number one. Matter of fact, I like SE so much that one of my pocket knives that I carry with me when I'm carrying this around is the SE Zancudo. Like, look at the action on that. Like, I really, really love this knife a ton. This has been in my side pocket, and this is good for like the smaller jobs versus this one is for the bigger jobs. And I like that they're both kind of like tan. I don't know. Let me wait for the focus. Here, yep, there you go. So I like this knife also because it just stays at my side, and this stays at my side, and I can pick and choose which of these knives I use for whatever task it is that I am doing. However, a couple weeks ago, I was sent a knife by a company asking if I wanted to review their newest survival knife, and the knife that they sent me is the Scorpion Blade, made by a company called Defense Supply. And the reason why they're really, really proud of this knife is it basically combines two knives into one. On one side, you have the Indonesian karambit, and then on the blade side, you have the American Bowie. I literally almost just said David Bowie. Now, what's great about that is that on the handle side, you get the kind of grip and handle that you expect from a karambit, right? Like, you have a really, really strong hold. It's great. And then on the other side, for those of you who are David Bowie, American Bowie style knife fans, then this will work out for you because a Bowie is very, very versatile. Use it to fillet, use it to cut. Like, there's a lot of things you could do with a Bowie knife. Now, personally, I am not a huge Bowie knife kind of fan, but I am a David Bowie fan though. I will say that. However, if this works the way I'd like it to, then this might just be a knife that I will carry around, and it might just turn me on into the Bowie style type of knives. Now, this video is not going to be a compare and contrast between these two knives. Like, that's just trying to compare apples and oranges. However, I will kind of make reference to this once in a while because this is the knife that I have loved. So I want to know if this can kind of replace that. Now, I will also say that I am not like a knife expert. In fact, I love knives. Like, I love to collect knives, but if you were to put me in a rank somewhere, I'd probably still be like one notch below novice, because although I do love knives, there's so much about them that I still don't know, like different kind of steels and different kind of grinds. I'm not an expert at it by any means, which means that if some of you are, and you are humongous knife fans, if there's anything that I missed in this video or things that you noticed that you would like to comment, please leave it in the comment below. I'm always willing to learn. Call me out also if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, because like I said, this is not really my huge forte, but it'd be great to learn, especially from a lot of you who are humongous knife fans, and why you would probably go with a Bowie or why you might want to stick with an SE or something like that. Now, one thing both these knives do have in common, and something that I do look for in a fixed blade, is that they're both full tang. I always go with full tang. Like, to me, if it's not full tang, that's a deal breaker. Full tang is basically the knife is just one long piece, and you put your scales on top of that. When you're going to do a fixed blade, you want like a full tang blade, because then you'll know that that thing's going to be stronger than other knives that are out there. Outside of them being full tang though, these knives could not be any more different, which is why I don't want to do like a full comparison. The SE, the blade, is made of 1095 steel, and 1095 steel is known to be tough. Like, this thing will take a beating. You want 1095 if you want that toughness. The downside about 1095 steel though is that it's corrosion and rust prone. Like, this can rust and corrode on you easy, which is why I have to do a lot to maintain it, and I have to make sure I'm oiling it up and keeping it from rusting out on me. On the other hand, the Scorpion, this one is made of D2 and then coated in titanium. D2 though is more of a budget blade, so just keep that in mind. But D doesn't mean that D2 is not good. There's a lot of D2 knives that I have that just perform really, really well. Now for the scales, the SE has micarta scales. I love micarta scales. Like always give me micarta scales. They get dirty easily, but that dirt kind of becomes like a patina and it just wears really, really well. And plus it's comfortable. Micarta scales just feel so good. And I'm like, I don't know what took me so long to jump on the micarta bandwagon. The Scorpion, however, is not micarta scales. This is more, it feels more like polycarbonate or plastic. Now they both do come in Kydex sheaths. The SE just has like a nicer finish on their Kydex versus this one feels more like a plastic. On the back they have two different mounting options, but because they're Kydex, you can basically switch these out. So that's not like a deal breaker or anything like that. The SE comes with this MOLLE panel bag type of setup. And I like this because this allows me to put it in the back of my Jeep where there's a MOLLE panel. It just kind of hangs there. And at the same time, you could also put it on your belt. This one doesn't have your MOLLE panel back, but it does have a clip. And this clip is actually really nice. In fact, I might switch these out later on. You just unscrew both of these bolts, the bolts that are on this, and you can move the backing around however you want. What I like about this one is that it's a belt loop. You just pop this and then this thing pops up. And so you can put your belt in or put it into anything and then lock it in place. That's not going anywhere. Other thing though is the way they retain, they're both not going anywhere. Like, however, I found that the SE is a lot tighter, and I have tried to loosen the retaining bolts already, and I've got it to that point, but any looser than this and it's gonna fall out. Like, see, it takes a little bit more strength for me to get this out. Before, I used to be so scared that it was getting stuck that one day I'm just gonna go like this and it's gonna slice my hand or something. It's there, but it's not as easy as this one. I mean, this one just pops out with, you see that? Like no effort at all. Like this thing just pops right out. This is currently a production model though. This is currently not yet being sold at market because right now it is still in their Kickstarter phase. Good news though is that they've already surpassed their Kickstarter goal and more, so this is definitely going to market. But if you want to be one of the first to get your hands on one of these, then follow my links below and then back them on Kickstarter. But let's go do a deeper dive. Let me tell you about this knife and then we'll go ahead and test it out and see if it holds up to everything that they say. All right, so what do you need to know about the Scorpion blade? Okay, again, made by Defense Supply Company. Comes with a nice Kydex sheath, comes out really easy, retention is super great, and then you have your belt buckle system on the back. You have your Indonesian karambit as your handle, and then you have your American Bowie as your blade. You have this finger loop in the back. That just gives you a lot more grip, and it also gives you a lot more stability. This might also be good for defense type of stuff. Now, I do have smaller hands than many of you, and this feels a little big for me. If you are a bigger handed person, this might work out a lot better for you, but for me, I tend to hold like this and it's kind of digging into my fingers a little bit. For those of you who have, bigger hands, this is definitely going to fit you better. But for me, it feels weird because I have to kind of spread my fingers a little bit to hold it, which then pushes this finger against the top of this, and it doesn't feel as comfortable as when I'm holding my SE. Like this SE3 for me, the grip is phenomenal, and this it gets weird. This feels more comfortable without me using the finger loop, but once I put my hand in the finger loop like that, then it starts to hurt a little bit. You get jimping at the top of this. Same thing with the SE, you get jimping on that as well. The jimping on this is like closer to the knife though, so it's right up here, where the jimping on this is still on the handle itself. You see that? So I kind of like that feature because you're not coming into the knife area. Now, from what I can tell, this is a flat grind, but I could be 100% wrong. And I went on their website to see if they make mention of it, but they do not. So if you can tell, what kind of grind this might be, let me know in the comments below. It is a drop point. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a D2 steel with a titanium coating. When you back this on Kickstarter, you do get a couple of options as far as blades. You can get this one, or you can get the one that's partially serrated. So for those guys who like the serrated knives, they do have a version where it's serrated down here. So if you like to cut rope and things like that, they do have a serrated version. Now, as far as scales, you have options there as well. They actually give you 3 different colors colors to choose from. You can choose from this one, which is what they call their desert brown, but to me it feels more like a tan. Or you can get it in black, so if you want to do like a black blade with a black handle, then you can have an all blacked out type of look. For those of you who like green, they do have an olive green version as well. They also do really like their hardware. They use black hardware to really set it off from the handle, and then right in the middle you have this really simple logo, so it's not too gaudy and it's just right there. And then on the blade it does say Scorpion on it right here. Not a lot of branding on this, so unlike this one, I mean look, you got branding here, you got branding there all over the blades, but I do kind of like branding. But this one, if you are the kind of person that doesn't like having logos everywhere, this is a nice and simple one to carry around. So anyway, let's go test this out. They said that there's some things that these knives can do and withstand, so let's see if we can really beat this thing up. Alright, so let's get this knife tested. Now, it's always good to test your knives in a controlled environment at home before getting on the field and finding out that it can't handle what you thought it could handle. In their video, they said that this knife is so unbreakable that it will pass the sledgehammer test. Well, we're about to find that out. Now, I don't ever foresee a need for you anytime to ever hit a knife from the side with a sledgehammer, but in the event that you do, for some odd reason, then we're about to find out that if it will break or bend under pressure. Safety glasses and sledgehammer. One more time. No bends, still straight, no dents. However, I did get some denting from the teeth that are on my vise, so it did nick the logo on the other side and chipped off a little bit of the handle, but that had nothing to do with the impact. That had more to do with the teeth that are on my vise, but other than that, retains. Now they also said that the point of this knife will survive the concrete drop test. Now I know I have certain knives that if I were to drop it straight down into the concrete, that point is getting chipped off. So let's find out if this knife can survive that. Now there is some white stuff on it, and that's just from the concrete that it hit. It did look like it sort of flattened a little bit, just a tiny bit. Like you can't really tell and it's hard to tell, but I could see that it did kind of dull the point a little bit. Not sure how detrimental it is. I mean, it still hits, so. Alright, so let's do some actual practical applications here, okay? Because nowhere on the field do you need to drop your knife on concrete, and nowhere on the field do you need to hit the side of your knife with a sledgehammer. What are we actually using it for? Different things, like cutting firewood. So let's see if this can cut firewood down into size the way I would normally do it when I'm out camping and overlanding. Let's see if this thing will split it. If it passes the sledgehammer test before, should have no problem doing it now, right? Cuts it pretty easily. It's a little not wide enough to get the whole thing, so you're gonna have to kind of do it in little chunks like this, but a lot of times this is why we're cutting it anyway, because we need these thinner ones to get a fire going, and it's still a lot longer than my Essie, which if I wanted to do that works out really well. Let's try the Essie on here, and let's try this again with a smaller piece. This was a tad bit slower than this. This actually cut through almost like butter, and this a little bit slower, but they both can handle it. There you go. All right, let's cut up some regular leather, see how it stands up to that. This is 10-ounce leather. Careful not to cut myself. Okay, cuts it. How will the Essie do? Oh, it's a lot easier. This thing is tough, man. All right, and now for something more delicate. Start out with this one. Of course, cuts easy. Essie. Precise. And that one's precise too. They both kind of perform pretty well. Hey Asia, I thought you weren't going to compare the two knives, apples to oranges, blah, blah, blah. I know what I said, all right? But you know what? I think I needed to, because if this knife is meant to replace this knife, then I need to know that this knife can do everything that this knife can do, but even better. There's a reason I went with Essie. When I was shopping around for survival knives, I did a bunch of research on the best ones that are out there, and the Essie felt right in that price point that I wanted. And ever since then, I haven't turned back. So to answer the question, can this knife be the one and only knife that I will ever need? Hell no, because who doesn't want more knives? I mean, come on. I'm glad to have both knives because they're both really, really capable. This one is super strong, and so is this one. If I were going to reach for something though, I'd probably reach for the SE, just because the compactness of it, it's smaller, it fits in the side of my belt loop a lot better. Having something this small is easier for me to reach than having this big old defense knife on the side. Now, for some of you who are bigger and have beefier hands than I do, because I have these needle fingers, this might work out for you. For me, it just was too uncomfortable to hold, especially when I'm putting my finger through the loop. But for some of you who have the bigger hands where this one might be too small for you, this might just be the right thing. But I'm gonna have both. I'm gonna reach for this first though. But having a backup knife, maybe in my bug out bag, having this on there would be great to have. And I might just keep this one in the 4Runner, keep this one in the Jeep like I have. That way there's always a knife somewhere anytime we need one. Now, just because it's not fully for me, it does not mean that it's not for you. And someone out there is watching this right now going, oh my God, that's a sexy knife, I need it. Well, they're still live on their Kickstarter. Go and back them and be one of the first to get your hands on one of these. You get a bunch of different options when you do. You can get serration, non-serration. You can get different finishes from black to stonewash black to this titanium. And then you can choose the color for the handle. You can go with this brown, or you can go with the black, or you can go with the olive green. I mean, you have your options. It is a great knife. Very, very capable. I'm glad they sent this to me because now like I said, you can't have too many knives, right? And having two knives now for survival, one being longer than the other, will really help. But even if I will go with this every time, I mean, this is just my sidekick. This is my buddy, but this is also highly capable, and I'm glad to have it. So thank you, Defense Supply, for sending this over for me to review. If you are interested, links are below. But that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful. And if you did, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also consider supporting us on Patreon so we can continue to make more content like this. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. I should practice with this. I am totally going to be like a ninja or something.